This past week, as my sisters and brother contacted you all, and you shared your memories and looked at the pictures to prepare for all this, I started to get really scared. I thought, I don't know this woman at all. I didn't know that young woman on the beach in the picture. I wasn't there when she married my father. I couldn't possibly say anything. I can't possibly say everything there is to say. Some of you knew her in ways that I never could. As a friend, as an aunt, as a co-worker, as a choir mate, an in-law, and a grandmother. Then I started to grieve in a way that I didn't see coming. I started to grieve the fact that I knew so little of her. I only know her as a son. Like that's the gift that I have. That was my gift. So I hope you can forgive me if I leave something out or miss something you might have said, or I get something wrong. What I do know for sure is that this would have made my mother very happy. All of you, your family, in her church, listening to her choir, Mrs. Selby, Mr. Paul Mary, Christy reading the New Testament, Stacia reading the Old Testament. Wow. And her second son, the one who's supposed to be a priest, up here behind the pulpit. She will certainly have died and gone to heaven and sit here. Right here. We're sitting in it. When I was in my 20s, I left college for a couple of years. My mother had sold a big house on East Ridge, and she was living in a condo in Bell Ridge. I found a job as assistant caretaker on the estate. I was home after work and just finished making myself something to eat. I put my dishes in the dishwasher. My mom walked in from work with groceries in her hands. And she put the groceries down. And she saw what I'd done. And she walked out of the dishwasher and she started rearranging the dishes like aggressive. Clank. Really, I had done it wrong. It kind of annoyed me. I lived on my own and did a few things. I didn't do it wrong. Mom, I said, there's more than one way to load a dishwasher. Let me pause here and say the dishwasher was a major flashpoint in my family. My mother liked a tiny kitchen, but my mother had 5 kids. My mother liked the dishwasher, but in a certain way, but my mother had 5 kids. And my mother was a lot like me. She had very little patience, and so do I, but I don't have 5 kids. Let's just say that there are many things that were said after, say, a bowl, half eaten bowl of cereal was left on the counter that should not have been said. She stopped and looked back at me, and she said, if other people want to do things the wrong way, that's their business. Okay, so here in this space, in my mother's slice of heaven, I'd like to finally settle the question that has plagued my family for at least as long as I've been alive. What is the right way to live dishwasher? Courage. Christy said it best in her Facebook post, I've never met a woman more courageous than my mother. She was born in a coal mining town in western Pennsylvania, a paycheck away from that. Or as my mother would say, a paycheck away from not having a pot to piss in. They heated their house and cooked with coal, and used an outhouse even in the dead of winter. I remember being given a bath or two in a steel tub my grandmother used to pull out of the middle of the kitchen for washing up. Giving thanks for food on the table at the end of the day was much more than a formality or a ritual. Coming home alive from work was not a given. Somewhere out of she found somewhere I don't know where she found music. In high school, she played in the marching band. On weekends, she played saxophone in a dance band. And she learned to sing, something she would do for the rest of her life. What has always impressed me is that she left. When she graduated high school, she took a job at the FBI and moved to Washington, D.C. Alone. Alone. She wasn't checking in for orientation week on Quad. She wasn't FaceTiming mom and dad before she went to bed at night. She wasn't in a group chat texting her friends. She wasn't alone. All she had was a high school education and fierce determination. There are stories of how she played. There are stories of how she stayed late and worked over a weekend trying to type up a speech for Bobby Kennedy. And how she was the one who answered the phones from the press when they called looking at the office of her boss. There's a framed letter from J. Edgar Hoover congratulating her and my father on their marriage. There are pictures of this amazing and I must admit fun and sexy life she built for herself during the Camelot days of Washington, D.C. When she started her family with my father, she was determined to give them all the things she never had. She was determined they would not be poor. She was determined they would be educated. She was determined they would have opportunities she never dreamed of. And she was determined they would have faith. Faith. My father's death shattered our family. And it should have shattered my mother's faith. But it didn't. Everything she had worked for, the love of her life and the father of her children, gone. Stacy was 16, Christy 16, Jeff 14, I was 12, and Susie was 10. And she was alone. Again. 45 years old and alone. She went to work. She got us dressed. She fed us. She got us to church. She got us to recital and swim meets and football games and tennis matches. You know how many cars she taught us. How many cars we wrecked. Every Christmas was perfect. Every Easter meal, traditional Slovakian and delicious. She got us through life one meal, one recital, one game at a time. I remember night taking care of her in her bed crying, praying and crying, and talking to my dad, and pleading for help. With my siblings, I remember fights, and arrests, and suicide attempts, and running away and dropping out of school. And through it all, she would say, God will take care of us. He hasn't let me down yet. Acceptance. Acceptance is not the first word that comes to my mind over the years when I thought about my mother. Courage, fierce determination, and faith done everything for her with acceptance. When my siblings and I were sitting around my mother's deathbed last week, there were a few times we were laughing, seriously laughing hard. We were cracking each other up. When I think back to all the Christmas dinners, all the grandchildren and spouses, when I think of our island trips and Katima and walks to town and body surfing, I think of the laughter, the joy, the love. People always ask me, how did that many people, how did that many relatives get along? Let's be clear here. After all our family's been through, there is no reason we should be laughing. There is no reason we should be speaking to each other. How is this possible? Each of the five of us has, at one point or another, had serious issues with my mother. Between the five of us, we've been disappointed in her. We've rejected her. We've criticized her. We've looked down on her in our darkest moments, maybe even hated her. But she always accepted us. No matter what. Not once did she ever lock us out. Not once did she ever close her door and tell us we were not welcome. She may have not understood us. She may not even agree with us, but she prayed for us not to be different, not to do what she wanted, or to see the error in our ways, but for God to watch over us, because she loved us. Love. David, Susie's husband, and my third, and Jeff would probably agree, her favorite son. Had a very special relationship with my mother. One that, as he said, wasn't full of the baggage of our childhoods. The other night, he so elegantly, so clearly, and so forcefully implored us to understand just how deeply and uniquely she loved each of us. Not the kids, not the grandkids, but each of us as individuals. He told us how she described each of us so accurately and so lovingly, and it was clear that she knew who we were, and she adored us. I think because of this acceptance and this love that we laugh. She didn't fight back. She didn't criticize us back. She didn't hate us back. She accepted us. She allowed us to find our ways, even at her own expense. She gave us the space to find our way and our time to let it go, to heal. Healing. I believe that the hardest thing you can do in life is to give something you've never received yourself. And I believe that to give something you've never received yourself is the most important thing you can do. It's how true healing, how generational healing works. If I was never given compassion, the hardest thing for me to do, and the most important thing for me to do, is to be compassionate. If I was never listened to, the hardest and most important thing for me to do is to listen. But it's hard. It's really hard. Why? Because first I have to agree that I never got it. It's a loss. That I have to get past my anger and realize that it's no one's fault. It just is. That I have to go learn how to do something I don't know how to do. Then when I finally climbed that mountain and figured it out, I have to give it away for free. No strings. And if I do it really well, the person I give this to won't even know I've given them anything. It will just be. They won't ever see it. They'll just know how to do it themselves without ever knowing something they need to do. That's what it means to heal. And that's what my mother did. We are standing here in St. Mary's Church in Louisville, Connecticut, Fairfield County, a world and a lifetime away from Uniontown, Pennsylvania. And it's just a fact. We are housed, we are fed, we are educated, and we have opportunities that a coal miner's daughter could never have imagined. And it's just a fact to us. It's the air we breathe. That is what my mother gave us, and most of the time we can't even see it. You wonder why? Because she did so well. But it turns out this was just the start. It's the foundation, the bedrock. Each of us now has our part to do. Standing on what my mother built, the privilege, the education, the faith, we have to find when we're lacking our need, our hurt, our want, and even our anger. The things we never had, and the things we so desperately want, and the things we want to be our children, and turn that into our own calling. We have to do the work, and we have to give it away. No resentment, no strings. That is how we can repay my mother and give her life the meaning it so deserves. For the record, I once tried to explain this to my mother, to thank her. And when I got to this exact point, she looked at me like I was out of my mind. with courage, with determination, with faith, with acceptance, and with love. Thank you all.
Mm.